Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Nicole and this is Let Knit Be Sew. I am here today with a bit of a vlog style video this time around. If you have been watching my channel for a little bit, you will know that it's no secret that I do love sewing a t-shirt, especially ever since I got my Overlocker, which is quite a while ago now. Yeah, whizzing up t-shirts in lots of fun and funky printed jerseys always brings me great satisfaction when it comes to sewing. And I have quite a few different patterns that I like to use on a pretty regular basis for sewing up knit tops. I'm just a fan. Yeah, and I definitely, I do think you can sew them without an overlocker, but I feel like, yeah, the overlocker was the game changer with that regard, because you can, barring, any like top stitched style details, you can pretty much sew everything on the overlocker and it's super speedy. So yeah, it's great for instant gratification sewing. If you don't have a lot of time, if you've cut it out, you can probably sew it up in like an hour if it's a basic t-shirt, which, depending on how you're feeling and how your sewing projects have been going, it's always great to do something like that. If, maybe you sewed up your last projects didn't go so well and required a lot of like fitting and one thing and another, it can be really good to have a palette cleanser and just, whip up a jersey top. So I recently, well, I say recently, it's probably a couple of months ago now, had a go through of my wardrobe and as well as sort of thinking about what the gaps were. I also, had a pretty good look through and decided that some of the things in there had, they had been well worn and well loved and been through the wash many, many, many times and were looking past their best. And so, yeah, there's definitely, I still have a reasonable selection. The one I'm wearing today, let's scoot this down. I can't hold this back. This is about as far away as I can hold my tripod at the moment. But this is a jean t-shirt, which is a very basic t-shirt pattern by Ready to Sew. It's my kind of go-to for just, your very, very basic t-shirt with no bells and whistles, no, unusual seam lines or anything like that. It's my go-to in this Danish design cotton jersey that I got from Masin. So yeah, that's what I'm wearing. But yeah, I do feel like some of the t-shirts that I have kept are more, because of the colours and the prints on them, they're a bit more autumnal, and also some of them have got longer sleeves, so I do have a little bit of a gap now that I did a bit of a clear out for t-shirt jersey tops with more spring summer vibes about them. So there's a few fabrics that I have acquired over the last little while that I've just been waiting I've just been waiting for the opportunity to get sewing some jersey tops. Now I have already cut one out. I was intending to like include it in this vlog, but I was actually the pattern, I wasn't quite sure, because the fabric that I have, which I will show you, it was a very small, well, I say a very small, it was under a meter. It was a remnant, again from the Masin, and yeah, I had an idea of the pattern I wanted, and I thought I was going to have to colour block because of the small amount of fabric, but I had a bit of spare time at the end of the day yesterday, so I was like, I'll just get the pattern out and, lay the pieces on and see what's what. And because of the way that the t-shirt is designed and the orientation that the pattern pieces have to go in on your fabric when cutting out, it somehow magically transpired that this 0.7 of a meter was going to be fine, like for everything. It definitely is, because the pattern pieces are shaped the way they are. I definitely couldn't have gotten one of these out of that fabric, so I would have had to colour block if I'd chosen this. But yeah, and I was basically so surprised. I was like, I should just go ahead and cut this out, shouldn't I? So that's what I did. But that means I don't have any footage of that. But yeah, I have a couple of other fabrics that I want to get cut out this afternoon as well. Probably won't get to sewing them today because it is 5 to 3 in the afternoon on Sunday. But yeah, I thought I would take you along with me just to show you, yeah, how I go about sewing jersey tops. I don't think there's anything, you know, I'm not claiming to be new or innovative in that front, but I'm just going to show you what works for me and how I kind of, particularly when you have like an overlocker and one thing or another, how, you know, when I want to get a couple of t-shirts sewn up in one hit or in pretty close succession, sorts of things that I try and do to kind of yeah, get the be most efficient, I guess I would call it, in the sense that, you know, you're not going back and forth to the sewing machine, you know, every other step. Yeah, just some of the things that I tend to do, particularly when I have, yeah, a few things cut out that I know I can sort of make interchangeably because they're not too complex. I don't have to particularly follow the instructions anymore because I'm, you know, very experienced now in how they go together, having made them so many times. So yeah, I thought that might be of interest. And yeah, we'll have hopefully 3 summer vibes jersey tops done by the end of it. So here we go. So, so I'll show you the piece that I've cut out first. So this is the French Navy Tarifa Tee, which is which I've made a couple of times before. I did like a wearable toile, and then I've got like a stripy version. But basically, it's got these like side panels, and yeah, you kind of divide up your front and back between these like side panels, and then your sleeves kind of join onto those side panels. I'll try and like put in a line drawing so you can see more easily what I'm talking about. But let's get out one of my bigger pattern pieces. So this pattern piece is in fact the sleeve. So it's kind of going like that. And your like side panels are coming in here. So yeah, I was really surprised that I didn't have to colour block. And yeah, this fabric, I've shown it a couple of times on the channel already. It's this, yeah, kind of a bit leery, but also kind of awesome, in my opinion. So it's got this like big floral design, and then it's got these little budgies all over it. And oh yeah, I've talked before about my love of budgies. So yeah, I really wanted to get some of this fabric and make something out of it. So yeah, this is the Tarifa Tee. So yeah, these are some of like the side panels. What is this? This is the back side panel. So yeah, you have 2 back side panels, and then you've got the front side panel as well. And yeah, I'm super excited to see how this comes out. I feel like it's going to be a, you know, probably a t-shirt that's not for everyone, but you know, you could probably say that about me as well. So yeah, that's the first one that is all prepped and ready to sew. Also, just to show you like how, you know, how tight I was on fabric, apart from this, you know, little patch here, which, you know, what could you get out of this? Like basically nothing. The crotch of some underwear, maybe. That's about it. Yeah, apart from that little patch, literally the rest of it is all like, it's like silly string. Yeah, it's like string. What is left over, you know, that like t-shirt yarn, it's basically that. So yeah, I really did yeah, pull as much as I could out of that remnant piece. Okay, so the next t-shirt that I want to get cut out is the Tulia t-shirt, which is a pattern, it's a unisex pattern actually, by sewing by Masin or Masin, however that is pronounced. So the Tulia Tee is this one on the left here, and hanging out next to it I've got another one of my jean t-shirts, because hopefully you can see that the Tulia Tee is considerably longer than the jean. And whilst I don't mind this one I have here, I would like it to be more in line with the length of this one, just because if I want to tuck this in, like that's quite a lot of fabric to try and tuck in to like a pair of trousers or a skirt or what have you. So yeah, I want to, I don't want it to cut it exactly to this length, because I want to retain the kind of like drapiness if I do tuck it in. But if we come a bit closer, like there is a good, there's like a hand, a hand's width. So that's a good probably like 3-4 inches longer that it is. So I'm going to get my tape measure out in just a second, just to measure like how much it is longer. And then I will make the adjustments to my actual pattern pieces. And that's going to help me also with the fabric that I have for the Tulia Tee, because you can see on this one, my fabric is not directional. It's like a general like floral, and there's not really an obvious direction to the fabric. So I was able to, had to turn pattern pieces like the wrong way around, to, compared to the suggested cutting layout, in order to fit them on my fabric. Because again, I've only got 1 meter of the viscose jersey that I'm planning to make this in. So yeah, I'm going to make those adjustments now to have a shortened version. Okay, so you join me on the floor, also known as my cutting table, and I've sort of laid out my pattern pieces. And yeah, the problem that I have got is that this fabric, which is a viscose jersey, which I got from La Masin, it's a stuff, Danish design one. It definitely has like a direction, so you can see like these flowers are always like pointing up. So I can't really, mess about with the orientation of my pattern pieces. And also, as I just said, I want this to be shorter anyway, because, it's, I think probably maybe because it's a unisex pattern, and I am only 5'3", that is why it comes up quite long. So I turn this pattern piece over the right way, so you can see you've got, there's the 3 pieces I'm going to have to do it for. So you've got the, so this is the front, so you have this pattern piece that's cut on the fold, and then this other front, so you have effectively like 3 panels on the front, and then the back is just 1 piece, although it does have a seam line. You could obviously change that and cut it on the fold if you wanted, but yeah, all of these pieces have got a lengthen or shorten line. And yeah, I think that having had a look at my other t-shirt that I know is a length that I really like, I'm going to take 3 whole inches off of the bottom, which feels enormous. But yeah, that's just how long the Tulia Tee happens to be on myself. So yeah, not super glamorous down here on the floor. So we will start off with cutting these pieces along the lengthen and shorten line. Right, I've got this, I think it's meant to be for quilting, but because this is a pretty straightforward boxy t-shirt, I think this is probably going to be the easiest thing for me to draw my lines on, to take these 3 inches off of the pattern piece and join these cut off bits back on, but so the eventual t-shirt will be 3 inches shorter than the pattern. Okay, so you can see where I have like joined it on. I've now got a situation where I've got this like little step here, where the you know, my the curve of the underarm, because this is a grown on sleeve, has like yeah, is out of sync now because I've taken those 3 inches off. So I'm going to draw it on, but probably I could just wing it by eye. But you know, let's try and do this semi-professionally, shall we? So you know, let's just do this. And cut that little bit off. Okay, that's one adjusted pattern piece. Now I've got to do the other 2. It's a bit more pronounced, the difference here. So I'm gonna get my ruler and do this one. Yeah, and again, this is even more dramatic here, but you know, I'm just going to come in. Like I say, it is just the underarm seam. I haven't changed the like width of this, just the length. So I know that it is very loose fitting, so I don't think it's going to matter too much, you know, changing this line under here. So I'm just going to. You could also. I do have one of those like French curve things around here somewhere, but I'm just gonna eyeball it. Okay, we are now all pinned out on my fabric. I have no idea how I managed to do what I did with the first one I made, because I am reasonably sure that I only had a meter of that fabric. And yeah, somehow, despite having taken 3 inches off of all of the body pieces, I've still had to make the decision to cut that's the back panel there. I've still had to make the decision to cut that upside down. I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference, just because, one, this is a very, if I zoom down a bit, like this fabric, like the print is very like watercolory. I'm not sure that's really an adjective, but hopefully you know what I mean, in the sense that it's not super bold, you know, everything kind of like flows into one another. If it was a very like harsh kind of geometric type pattern, I think it would be, you know, really obvious that I had cut some pieces in the wrong direction. But yeah, I think it's going to be okay. And yeah, I've decided to do it this way. Like I did toy with perhaps, so I've got like on the right, so this is the front middle panel, and then this is the front side panel with the grown on sleeves. I did think, oh, maybe I could, you know, so it looked perhaps intentional to cut the middle one way and the sides the other way, but I decided against that. I think I've heard people say it about when they're doing their hair, that like what's going on at the back of my head is none of my business. So I think I'm adopting that with the t-shirt, in that what's going on my back is none of my business, and I'm sure I'll be fine. Like I say, I don't think it's as obvious as some prints could be, and yeah, there's also a join in the middle, so I think it's going to be all right. I don't think it's going to look ridiculous. That's my statement. I'm sticking to it, at least for now, until I sew this up. So time to get cutting out these bits. Like I say, this is a very straightforward pattern. You can see that literally 1, 2, 3, 4 pattern pieces. So yeah, very straightforward. So let's get cutting out. Okay, Tulia Tee is all cut out. So this is the 3rd fabric that I want to make into a spring summer t-shirt. This again was from Masin. They do just have like a big selection of jerseys, I've found. They do stock a lot of the Danish design ones, and other prints as well. I'm not sure if this is a Danish design one or not. It hasn't got... Oh yeah, it is on the selvage. So yeah, it's also a Danish design one. Yeah, I just find them to be pretty good quality, these ones. So yeah, I'm always keeping an eye on when there's new fun prints, because you know me, I love a fun print. So this is a on a white, well, I think it's slightly off-white background, but you've got this sort of mixture of different blues. You know, it's kind of sort of a very abstract kind of leopard print, but in colour. So yeah, this is a cotton jersey. So the one I cut the Tulia out of was a viscose jersey to get that nice drape, but this is a cotton jersey. And the pattern that I want to make from this one is another of my favourite t-shirt patterns that I've made a ton of times with a cotton jersey, and that is the Forget Me Not Patterns Iris Tee, which there's a couple of variations, but the variation that I make is the short sleeve with the pleat. All right, there we are. One big pile of cut out fabrics and a moth trap in the corner, but pretend you don't see that. Yeah, so because of the way I like to sew up jersey tops, I do tend to do this, so cut out 2 or 3 at a time to sew up. I'll explain more when I get to the actual sewing part tomorrow. But yeah, we are all set and ready to go to add some new fun summery t-shirts to my wardrobe. So I don't know what happened to the original audio on this, so this is me showing you the pleat section of the sleeves on the Iris Tee, where you make a bunch of pleats and then you've got these square markings to line up so that the bottom edge of your sleeve covers over the pleats that you've made in the unusual pattern piece that you have for this. So you're going to pin it together, so you've got like a couple of like dot markings, so I tend to just put my needle, put a pin through and join it up that way to line up the markings, and then you can arrange the the seam that you're going to join together along here, so you can see it goes all the way along to cover up the bottom of the pleats that you've just made to create this lovely sleeve effect. So now you're just going to watch me pinning away whilst I finish this piece. And just to show you what it looks like after I've sewn that seam, so you can see that you've got these pleats. So you've got 3 sort of here, and then this other one that's forming here, so you end up with this sort of like indent, is that word? And then this is the bottom edge of your... It's not sitting super flat because the pleats are making this rather 3-dimensional, which is obviously the point. But yeah, this will be the bottom edge of the sleeve, and like I said, there is a cuff piece that goes on once it's all sewn in and the side seams are sewn up to the t-shirt. So yeah, okay, so I have brought all of my cut out pieces to the floor. Usually I sit on the chair when I do this, but because I'm trying to show you, it's easier to have a tripod when I am not sat on the sofa. But normally I would do this on the sofa. I would have a sewing YouTuber on in the background, and yeah, that's how I would get this done. But essentially what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through each t-shirt and pin together everything that needs to be joined together in the first instance. And what I mean by that is everything that can be joined that isn't relying on previous pieces to already be joined, if that makes sense. So I'm going to basically go ahead and pin all the pieces that can be pinned, ready to be sewn on the overlocker. And I'm going to do that for everything. So rather than as the instructions for these patterns would have you do it, they'll say, pin the shoulder seams, sew them, bring it back, pin the next bit, go and sew it, bring it back. That's obviously inefficient, but it's great if you, making a pattern for the first time and you're not sure what you're doing, or if you're just inexperienced, or if you're, not worried about being inefficient, I guess. But because I am, multitasking to get these 3 sewn up, I'm going to go ahead and pin everything that can be pinned from the outset together, ready to just then go and sit at the overlocker and sew a whole bunch of seams in one go. So for my Tarifa Tee, that means pinning the shoulder seams for the front and back pieces, and the neckband, and then also the side panels that you can see here join on each end to either end of the sleeve to create one piece. I'm going to pin those. For the Tulia Tee, that means pinning the 2 front side pieces to the middle panel and to the 2 back panels together, and then the neckband together. And then for the Iris Tee, it's very similar, so it'll be the shoulder seams for the front and back, the neckband, the cuff can also be pinned together, and I think that's it. So yeah, basically I'm going to pin all of those in one go, and it's going to take me a little while because that's a few different pattern pieces, but then it will then give me a whole bunch of things to just sew through. The thing I'm going to have to maybe remember, maybe not, is that Iris and Tarifa have the same seam allowance, which is 1/4 of an inch, and the Tulia has a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. So that's the only thing that I'm going to have to keep in my mind, is that the Tulia has a bigger seam allowance than these 2. Obviously, it's a loose fit. There isn't a huge amount of difference between 1/4 of an inch and 3/8 of an inch. So if I did end up sewing everything with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. As long as I was consistent about it, it's probably not going to be too big of a deal. So that's the only thing, the sort of, the caveat of doing it like this is that if you are using patterns that have 2 different seam allowances, then you've got to remember that if it matters. If it doesn't, then you could potentially just sew them all with the same seam allowance. But yeah, let's go cracking. Alright, so yeah, having done that first run through of everything that could be sewn together all in one go, busting through on the overlocker, I've now basically arrived at the same kind of point with all 3 tops, and that is that each of them need their neckbands putting in. They're obviously all got slightly different markings in terms of where it wants you to line up the neckbands. Some of them have got some additional notches and things like that, but yeah, the next thing I'm going to do is pin in the neckbands on each one. Actually, that's a lie. That is a complete lie. The Tulia, because I sewed up, so you can see, oh, so I've sewed up the front panel to have the the two sides on, and the back I actually have to sew the shoulder seams. So yeah, gonna pin shoulder seams on the Tulia and the neckbands on the other two. So yeah, almost at the same stage. One thing I didn't mention before I started sewing, and God, now I'm looking at the top of my overlocker. It is very dusty up here, so I'm going to have to give that a dust. The things you don't notice when you're just cracking away with the sewing. But yeah, one thing I wanted to point out is that another thing, I guess, in the efficiency stakes for sewing with jersey is that typically I do not change my overlocker thread, like, ever, unless it runs out, which you can see this guy here is running a bit low. But yeah, I just have grey on here and I sew everything with that. I think it would have to be a very, very special project, or something that was very sheer, or that I was seriously worried about things flipping up so you could see the inside of them, for me to change my overlocker thread. So yeah, you can, obviously these t-shirts are all like on the paler side, but obviously one of them is like a beigey color background, the other two are like more white or off-white. But yeah, I'm just using grey, and yeah, I'm just sticking with that. I did recently buy some of that variegated overlocker thread, but I haven't had a chance to try it out. But I think, same principle with that, you sort of, a bit of blending kind of covers all the bases. And, typically I'm sewing with very similar colours because I have a colour palette that I'm just drawn to. But yeah, always grey overlocker thread. Okay, so I went ahead and after I had joined the shoulder seams, I put the neckband in to the Tulia as well. But yep, I've got one neckband in, and we have the Iris Tee neckband in, and then I have my Tarifa with a neckband in. So the next deviation, which I guess I call it, like deviation from, feels like I'm doing a work thing, writing SOPs, and yeah, deviating from the instructions. But yeah, the next part where we've got a situation where one of the patterns is not the same as the others is on the Tarifa, because you can see I've got this sort of tabard situation. I can't really show you because I'm zoomed in, but yeah, essentially I have got my side bits. So I've got this side panel here, which is the sleeve, and then I've got the side panels sewn onto either end. I have got to put that in like as a sleeve. So the other two t-shirts, well, the Tulia has grown on sleeves, so there's no sleeve insertion. The Iris Tee has the sleeves that I prepared earlier with the pleating, so that needs to go in. And then with the Tulia, it's sleeves going in, but it's, a whole big piece going all the way down the side as well. So that's what I'm going to do next. Obviously, at this point, you could be doing top stitching on these neckbands. I need to trim a few little thread bits, but yeah, you could be doing top stitching. Typically I don't, unless I'm having like real struggles with the neckband innards, like flipping about. The Tarifa does actually come with a pattern piece for like binding the back neckline, and obviously you can do that to cover up the overlocking and make things look nice when it's on a hanger rather than a human. So I might do that, I haven't decided. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pin this sleeve / body panel and the sleeves into the iris as well. Alright, so now we're back to a point where every t-shirt is at the same stage. So all sleeves that need to be sewn in are sewn in, and so now we're at the stage where we're going to sew up from the edge of the sleeve all along the underarm and then down the side seam where appropriate. So I just wanted to mention here something that I tend to do, particularly for the two tops I have here that only have 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, because you can find that obviously with your overlocker, you're trying to be really careful. You can't sew over these pins, so you're having to be really careful about pulling your pins out on time. And sometimes things can shift about a bit, and that can mean that you end up with your fabric like moving, so then it's not caught equally, and you can end up with little holes. And obviously, so this is the Iris Tee that I've got under my presser foot here, and this is the underarm join seam, and that's like if you think about a t-shirt and the way you take it on and off and stuff, that's like the area that's going to get like the most stress on it. So you really want to make sure that is secure, otherwise you're going to end up, it might be fine for the first wear or so, but eventually that's where you're going to start seeing little holes appear. So what I tend to do is that what I will do is I'll start off, so I've got my presser foot, so I've got my fabric under my presser foot, and you can see I've lined it up with the line on the foot plate that's for the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. But what I tend to do is that I will sew that, and there's only a very short seam here because we've also got a cuff to add for this pattern. But what I tend to do is just before I get to this bit, I will actually increase my seam allowance, at least so it's like to the very edge of the foot plate. Sometimes I will try and aim for getting up to your like 3/4 of an inch seam allowance, which is this marker here on my overlocker. And then as quickly as I get out to that, I will then scoot back out again, so that it just nips in that bit, and it makes sure that you've definitely caught everything, and the risk of those little holes under the arms appearing because of the stress on the fabric as it's being worn are negated. So I just wanted to mention that's something that I do all the time when I'm sewing jersey tops. I don't know if it's a known thing, I'm sure, I'm not pretending to have invented it. I don't even know whether someone told me it or whether I just started doing it on my own. No clue. But I just wanted to mention it here now that I've got to this stage. Alright, we are almost on the home stretch. So for the iris, I went ahead and sewed on my cuffs. So you can see I've got now my pleat detail finished off with the cuff nicely. And now the thing that I'm doing at the moment is my neckband finishing. So I've decided to add some jersey. I had some scraps, so I've just added the same fabric to cover it over, and then the Tarifa actually had its own pattern piece specifically for that, so I've sewn them on, and now I've got a couple of labels to put in. I'm not putting one into the Tulia because the neckband on that is thin, and it's also like fairly tight in comparison, and I just feel like a label has the potential to be a bit scratchy. So I think I'm going to go with the pencil one for the iris, because the blue here is pretty similar, and then because this one is a bit more purpley, I think that goes nicely with with the Tarifa. So yeah, I'm going to add in the labels, sew the binding down the back necks, and then all I will have to do is the bottom hemming of each t-shirt. So really, really close to finishing. Neckband binding is now in with the labels. So you've got the one that says made on the Tarifa, and then got my pencil one and the iris. I have been round and overlocked all of my raw edges. You can see the hem of the Tarifa there. So obviously, because the iris, we've got the cuffs, we've got no sleeve hem to do, so I've got a body hem for all three tops, and then the Tarifa and the Tulia need their sleeves hemming as well. Obviously, as with like seam allowances, if you're like doing stuff like this, you've got to take into account that potentially the different patterns are going to have different hem allowances. So I have looked, and technically all three do have a different one. So that's something to consider. I'm definitely going to do the iris one as said, because like I say, I make that all the time and I like that length. So that one is 5/8 of an inch. The Tarifa, I know this comes up a bit short and I didn't have enough fabric to lengthen it. So the last one I made, I actually just like did the smallest hem that I could do, sort of, just sort of folding the overlocked edge in and hemming like that. So I'm probably going to do the same thing again, just so that it's not too short. The Tulia obviously I did take a whole 3 inches off of the length anyway. So I think the hem allowances on that are 1/2 inch. So I think I will probably stick with that. Like I say, it does still look plenty long enough. I'm not worried about it being too short now I've hacked that off of the bottom. But yeah, so yeah, now I'm going to fold up all of my edges and pin them ready to sew all my hems, and then that will be 3 whole summer t-shirts done and dusted and ready to wear in the sun. Okay, we are finished. So I've given these just a really quick press. Usually what I like to do is like stick things in the wash once I've finished them, just because I feel like, that can also help things to settle. I do also need to do the big go around, where you go around and you trim off all of the little thread ends, and then somehow, even though you're like absolutely 100% certain you got them all, when you're wearing it, suddenly like one just pops out. But yeah, I thought I'd just show you these quickly. I will also include some pictures of me wearing them, but that's probably not going to be today because it is really hot and I don't want to have to get changed multiple times. So this is the Tulia. So you can see the Tulia. So you've got this lovely drape with the panels at the front and the grown on sleeves. So the sleeves are kind of hanging down at the moment because they don't have any arms in them. But yeah, that is the Tulia. As I said when I was doing the cutting out, I did put these pattern pieces up technically the wrong way. I mean, I think I know it because I know that like these big flowers were kind of up one way, but like I honestly don't think it's terrible. And like I said, this is on my back, so that is absolutely none of my business what's happening behind me. And yeah, if anyone's staring that intently at my back, I think that's a them problem. So yeah, I'm happy with it. All right, here is the Tarifa. Oh my god, this is so much fun. Yeah, it is very out there with this bold floral large scale and these budgies, but I kind of love it. And I was a bit worried about how it might turn out with the panels, but I think it's fine. I think it just adds to the abstract of the fabric that you've got these splits, and also managed to not end up with budgie boob. The only budgie on the main front panel is all the way down here, so we're good. See my nice label up here, and it's hard to show the panels, but like it's 1 and 2. You've got the underarm bits here, so you can see where it joins the sleeve. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. It's really fun, really summery, and that's all you can ask for really in a summer top, right? So that's the Tarifa. And this is the iris. And I feel like this is going to be a really good sort of blending piece because, you know, I feel like most people will describe leopard print as a neutral, and this is also a pale blue on an off-white fabric. And I think, yeah, this could be layered in the not summer, and one thing and another. So yeah, I feel like this is probably going to get like the most wear, because I feel like the other two maybe, yeah, for certain things. But yeah, so you can see again, ooh, my label there in the back. Yeah, you can see my cuffs there all sewn in, and again, there we have some thread that needs cutting off. But yeah, I am super happy with this. Here's my hem, my zigzag stitch on the bottom. But yeah, super happy with this. And like I say, I am going to put in some photos with me wearing them so you can see it properly on a human person. But yeah, that's 3 summer tees all sewn up and ready to wear.
So here is the finished Tulia Tee. You can see here it's got a lovely drape, and I'm also really happy with the length now compared to my other one, how it stops just at sort of my like hip bone. There's a little bit going on here in terms of the placing in some of the patterns, but I didn't really have any other options for where they could go. So you can see you've got a bit of doubling up of the pattern in close proximity on some of the panels, but I'm super happy with this. Then we've got the amazing budgie print Tarifa Tee. It is so much fun, super vibrant, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I was a bit worried about how the paneling might look in such a bold fabric, but I love it, and I'm really happy. You can see here, I'm just going to show you that, you know, actually there's not too many budgies visible, just because there aren't that many, but I love this. And then this I think is my favourite. So this is the Iris Tee in the abstract leopard print fabric. You can see here I am showing off the arm detail, the lovely pleat, which is awesome, and I think just gives it a little something extra, even in this busy pattern fabric. But yeah, I just love the shape of this t-shirt. There's just something about the fit of it. It's just really nice, and you know, that's just why I've made it so many times before, because it's an amazing pattern. So that's the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Here are all of the t-shirts again. I would love to know which was your favourite. I've obviously told you mine, but thank you so much for watching, and I will be back soon again with another video. Bye bye.